Today I'm going to be talking about vampires, financial vampires, or what are commonly known as subscriptions. And because I'm going to be talking about vampires, I'm wearing this red shirt just to, for the occasion. You're going to want to watch till the end where I'll share some tricks that helped us achieve financial freedom. Welcome to my channel, Game of Life 411, and welcome to today's video. If you're not already a subscriber, I'd suggest you go ahead and subscribe now and turn notifications on so you'll be notified whenever I put out new content. I've got a lot of great content planned in the areas of finance, friends, family, cars, and health. So there's something for everybody. So why do I refer to subscriptions as financial vampires? Well, it's because they suck the life out of your finances and they slow your progress toward bigger, more important goals like getting out of debt or retirement. As we delve into this topic, I'd like to share some recent stats about the subscription industry. 89% of consumers underestimate the amount that they spend on subscriptions. You might wonder, why is that? Primarily, it's because they're not paying attention. So I'd suggest you take a look at this Dave Ramsey video, where Dave talks about the importance of paying attention to whatever is important to you, whether that be your finances, your family, your health, etc. Check it out. Subscription businesses have grown almost 5 times faster than other businesses in the S&P 500. And why is that? Because they're extremely profitable. And why are they extremely profitable? Well, think rent versus own. I think it's fairly well known that renting is more expensive than owning. And so when you're thinking about subscriptions, you're really renting something, not owning it. The subscription economy is set to grow to $1.5 trillion by 2025. And why is that? It's not just because new subscription businesses are springing up. It's because a lot of existing businesses are finding ways to adopt the subscription model. And why are they doing that? As I mentioned a minute ago, it's because it's extremely profitable. So every business is trying to jump on the subscription bandwagon. Let me give you an example. I use Quicken financial software to manage our finances and our budget. I've been using that software for, 15 or 20 years, something like that. And initially, I paid for it and I installed the software on my computer. They do have a cloud offering, but I've always used the one that's just on my computer. And for years I had that software, and every so many years I would pay for an upgrade because they improved features or something changed. So I would pay for those upgrades. But I didn't do it every year, and I wasn't required to do it every year. So it was up to me. And as a result, Intuit, the company that makes Quicken, made a certain amount of money. Well, a couple years ago they switched to a subscription-only model. Not just for their cloud offering, but even for the desktop version. So if I want to keep using features that are important to me, like the ability to download transactions from my bank, then I have to pay that subscription every single year. And the net result, of course, is more profit for Intuit. They make a lot more money off me now than they did before. Let me bring back that payment history and share a couple more stats of how Intuit leveraged the subscription model to increase their profits. When I was paying for subscriptions as needed, my average cost was $32 per year because I skipped some years. Since employing the subscription model, my average cost has been $88 per year. That's more than double the annual cost and almost triple. But it gets worse. Intuit has increased the price of the subscription every year except one in the last 5 years. And I expect that now that I'm captive, they'll continue increasing that price as much as the market will bear. Basically, they're counting on it being not as painful as me switching to another software platform. Now, occasionally businesses can go a little bit too far in their pursuit of profit, and this can backfire. And there was a recent example with BMW that I thought was illuminating. BMW came up with the brilliant idea that instead of asking customers whether they wanted to pay extra for heated seats in their cars, they would just install heated seats in every car, and then they would control them remotely. And only by paying a subscription would your heated seats actually work. Well, the stuff hit the fan, and BMW had to backtrack on that. But it's just an indication of where businesses are in their mindsets and how lucrative the subscription model is, that they really will go to these really extreme lengths to try and leverage it. So they were looking at an ongoing, never-ending revenue stream instead of just a one-time expense. One of the other reasons that the subscription economy is set to grow to $1.5 trillion by 2025 is that they make it very easy to subscribe, but they make it very difficult to unsubscribe. So I'll give you a couple examples. I often purchase music on Amazon. I like to buy the individual MP3s and have those on my phone and just use them as I desire. I don't subscribe to any services. And Amazon offers the ability to buy music, but they also push a service called Amazon Music Unlimited, where it's a subscription service. You're paying every month, and for that, they give you free access to a whole bunch of music. But of course, if you stop paying your subscription, then the music disappears. So that's not an option that I really wanted, but they really push it. They push it hard. And when you try to look for music, you will not find all the songs that you want to purchase. A lot of them are only available as part of this subscription service. And so that was very frustrating. And then even as I went through the process of trying to buy individual songs, I accidentally subscribed to Amazon Music Unlimited. I don't even know exactly how I did it, but I did it. They kind of, I think, make it easy for you to accidentally subscribe, and then they make it extremely difficult to unsubscribe. It took me so long to navigate through their various menus and whatnot to try and figure out how to unsubscribe from that service. So that's another reason that subscription profits and revenues are increasing. Another example I can give you is cable TV. A couple years ago, we got a beach house and we wanted to find a cost-effective cable TV service. We don't pay for cable TV in our own home, but for our beach guests, they kind of expect that. So we wanted to find a service that would be easy to subscribe to and easy to turn off during the off season or to unsubscribe from entirely. As I was researching, I thought I had found a provider that provided a good service, but when I looked into it further, the way that you had to put their service on hold or unsubscribe to it was very difficult. You actually had to get on the phone and talk to a customer service rep. And at that point, of course, they're going to try and talk you out of it. So that was not something that we chose to do. We went with a different service that allowed us to do that online without having to go through the hassle. But this is just an example of how they make it hard for you to unsubscribe while they make it easy for you to subscribe. The subscription process for that same provider was easy to do online, did not require talking to anyone. But to unsubscribe, you actually have to talk to a human. Ooh. The average US consumer has 12 paid subscriptions. For millennials, it's 17. So why is that? Is it because they use all these services on a regular basis? Very unlikely. The reason is similar to the reason why they withhold our federal income taxes. What they've found is that when you withhold something from someone, rather than asking them to make a payment for it, they feel it less. So someone around World War II had the brilliant idea of changing the paradigm with our tax system so that federal income taxes are withheld up front, and then you file your tax return and settle the difference at the end of the year. But by doing so, they've been able to steadily increase the taxes that are being collected without the same sort of repercussions they would have if they required people to actually write checks and mail those in. The same thing applies for subscription services, right? So if those are automatically coming out of your bank account rather than you having to proactively write a check or make a payment in some other way, then you feel it less. And so those subscriptions accumulate, even the ones that you're perhaps not using on a regular basis. And it requires you to take the initiative to remove those subscriptions. So the subscription companies are counting on your inaction. They're just counting on you to let things slide and continue as is, because that's the easy path. I'm just going to read you this next one. The subscription box market will reach $105 billion by 2032. Examples include meals, clothing, beauty, pet food, baby food, fitness boxes, even bacon. And the final stat, free trials convert almost 62% of users. So stay away from those free trials. You might think you're smarter than the average consumer, but the statistics don't lie, and businesses wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't extremely effective and profitable. So stay away from those vipers, they'll bite. Now let's talk about the tips and tricks that we used to make sure that subscriptions didn't bleed us dry. A good example to start with is media spending, because almost everybody in the United States spends on these items. Americans spend up to $282 per month on their internet plan, phone plans, streaming subscriptions, and cable TV packages. That's about 6% of the average US worker's monthly income. For our example, I assumed $100,000 as the income. And when you subtract out taxes, that means on average, across the United States, you would take home about $75,000 per year. So if you do the math there, $282 per month works out to $3,391 per year. And if you take home $75,000, that's about 5% of your take-home pay. So that's the first and most important way of looking at every recurring expense in your budget. Now 5% probably doesn't sound like much, but remember you have to put it in the context of your overall budget. Most people don't have a lot of margin in their budgets. So 5% is 5% that you don't necessarily have to do something else with. Now, the other thing you might be thinking is, Pete, I can't get rid of media spending. What are you, crazy? That's my primary form of entertainment. That's true, but I guarantee you that no matter how much or how little you're spending on media, you could reduce it further. So instead of 5%, maybe you reduce it down to 3%. And that's an additional couple $1,000 that you've saved yourself that you can put toward debt, toward retirement, toward saving for the kids' college, or some other great goal. I'm just showing a sample budget here. It contains all the normal categories, but this is not really for $100,000 income. But it makes the point that we need it to. Now you might be thinking, if subscriptions are just 5% of your total budget, how is that going to make a significant difference in your life? But subscriptions are only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to applying these tips and tricks. Really, you should apply these things to all recurring expenses. So if you look at all these different types of recurring expenses, you can see here that this represents 23% of your total budget. That's nothing to sneeze at. So if you can reduce each of those categories by a small percentage, that's going to add up to real dollars and make a real impact in your life. Subscriptions are just one category, but think about other things like annual tax preparation, Starbucks, if you get that on a regular basis, lawn mowing services, eating out, utilities, anything that happens periodically, insurance for your home, for health, for car, etc. Any expenses you have that are on a recurring basis can be viewed in the same way as subscriptions. And that brings us to tip number 2, which is to review all recurring expenses, including subscriptions, periodically. Now, at a minimum, you should do this once a year, but you could do it more often if you'd like. So just looking at a couple of these categories, when it comes to Starbucks or eating out in general, there are big bucks being spent in those categories. So if you reduce those or cut them out entirely, you can really save a lot. Lawn mowing is just another example of a service. You could do that yourself. And when it comes to utilities, turn down the thermostat in the winter. Turn up the thermostat in the summer. Make sure your house is well insulated. Turn off lights. Unplug unnecessary appliances. Do whatever it takes to reduce those utility bills. And when it comes to something like insurance, it really pays to look at that at least every year or two. What I've found is insurance companies will entice you in with special deals and bundles and things like that, and then over time they will remove those benefits and the prices will creep up. So you have to really look at those things every couple years and make sure that you have the provider that is providing you with the optimum coverage at the best price. We've literally saved thousands of dollars a year by doing this. Now, maybe you're the kind of individual who's not motivated into action by seeing these numbers. Because I know you're paying attention, you've probably noticed that over here on the right, I've got these hours and this dollar figure at the top, and you're probably wondering what that is. This is an advanced tip, so let me explain. One of the things that I always found helpful was to translate expenses into my time. And this all stems from a philosophical discussion I had right after college with a friend of mine that basically was along the lines that time is the only currency that we truly have. And if you'd like to know more about that, there's a pretty good discussion in this video with my son and myself. I'd strongly suggest you check it out. This was one of those formative concepts that really guided me throughout my entire life, and it's something that we really tried to instill in our kids. So basically what I've done here is I've taken the $75,000 of take-home pay and I've divided that by 1,600 hours. Now you might wonder why I picked 1,600 hours. Based on my background in the consulting industry, when you factor out vacations and holidays and things like that, and a typical 40-hour work week, you would expect your average employee to work about 1,600 hours per year. So that's why I use that number. And what you find is that my time, if I'm earning $100,000 and netting $75,000, is worth about $46 per hour. So based on that, I can look at all these different expenses and see how many hours of my time it actually takes to pay for each of these expenses. And to me, that's pretty cool. So some of these numbers are pretty small and you might think, oh, that's, worth it to me to work for a few hours to get, the benefit of whatever it is. But if you add them all together, it's pretty significant. So look at this, 365 hours of my time on these recurring expenses. That's time that I might rather spend doing something else, or I might rather invest that in retirement so that I can retire early and enjoy some of that time in a different way. The final tip I'd like to leave you with is to drop anything you have not used for 3 months. So if it's a subscription or some other kind of recurring expense and you haven't been doing it for 3 months, just drop it. You can always sign up again later. They'll gladly take your money. But really, the most important and final tip I'd like to leave with you is that it's important to train yourself to do these things out of habit. Every time an expense comes up or you have the temptation to subscribe to something, you should look at it in these ways and really question whether it's something that's worthwhile, it's worth the investment in money in terms of your time that it costs you to earn the money, and whether it helps you further your goals for getting out of debt or retiring or sending the kids to school or that next big vacation. I hope you'll take a moment to subscribe to my channel and check out some of my other great videos on the topics of finance, friends, family, health, and total hip replacement. And I hope you'll join the discussion on Facebook, where we can dive deeper into these topics and others. Thanks for watching and have a great day.